But make no mistake, you're in a war for the health of your brain. Everywhere you go, someone is trying to shove bad food down your throat that will kill you early. The real weapons of mass destruction are highly processed, pesticide-sprayed, high glycemic, low fiber, food-like substances stored in plasticized containers that are destroying the health of America. ISIS has nothing on our food industry. Those same companies use neuroscience tricks to hook your pleasure centers. I was a little disturbed when the labor secretary was actually the CEO of Carl's Jr. who did this ad, because what they're doing is they're making you believe that if you eat this, that you will have a body like this. Or if you eat this, she will want you. She will not want you. It's a lie. Tech companies continue to create addictive gadgets that steal our attention and distract us from our loved ones. Microsoft just published a study that said the human attention span is now 8 seconds. A goldfish is 9 seconds. This is evolution going the wrong way. A study in the Harvard Business Review said that only 10% of managers have both focus and energy. It's a war. And the war has consequences. Your bad habits have consequences. We know Alzheimer's disease is expected to quadruple in the next 35 years. There is no cure for it on the horizon, and 50% of people 85 and older will be diagnosed with it. And the really bad news, what we now know based on imaging, it starts in your brain literally decades before you have any symptoms. So this 59-year-old woman I diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, these are SPECT scans, it's the imaging studies we do at our clinics around the United States. The image on the left is a healthy scan, the image on the right is a 59-year-old woman who has Alzheimer's disease. Odds are she had negative changes in her brain in her 20s. So those of you that are waiting to get sick before you get serious about being well, you want to rethink that. In addition, depression has gone up 400% since 1987, and it is one of the major risk factors for Alzheimer's disease, as is diabetes. Brand new study showed that 50% of the United States, and this is because of the food we eat, we are either diabetic or pre-diabetic. And diabetes damages every organ in your body. It's not just a blood sugar problem. It turns out to be a blood vessel problem, and any organ that's deprived of blood flow is damaged. And then, as I mentioned, I published 2 studies that said as your weight goes up, the actual physical size and function of your brain goes down. And with 2/3 of Americans overweight, 1/3 of us obese, it is the biggest brain drain in the history of the United States. In fact, it's now considered a national security crisis because 70% of people who try to sign up for the military are rejected, and the #1 reason is weight problems. The exciting thing that I discovered is the answer is actually not to see these as separate disorders, but rather different expressions of the same unhealthy lifestyle that have exactly the same cure, what we call the brain warrior's way. So let me talk about what we do at Amen Clinics. We have 6 clinics around the US. And the first thing we do is look at your brain, because if we don't look, we don't know. And in 1991, I started to do this study called brain SPECT imaging. SPECT looks at blood flow and activity. It looks at how your brain works. So here's an example of a healthy scan. Compare it to someone who was a drug addict. The real reason not to use drugs, they damage your brain. When I saw these scans, they were so awful, I took them home to my 4 children and effectively induced anxiety disorders in all 4 of them when it came to drug abuse. And then I thought, well, I should scan myself. And when I scanned myself at the age of 37, it looked terrible. I'm like, why does my brain look so bad? And I played football in high school. And I had meningitis as a young soldier, and I wasn't sleeping, and I had a lot of bad brain habits. And when I saw my brain, I think everything I've done in my life since then was to make it better. And 20 years later, my brain is fuller, fatter, happier. And the reason is, so when I saw my scan the first time, I developed a concept I call brain envy. See, I'm a psychiatrist by training, and so I had to read Freud. And Freud had this concept of penis envy. And but he was wrong. He was about 2.5 feet too low in the body. What you really need to care about is the 3 pounds of fat between your ears. And so, you know, as I developed brain envy, I developed this program to do everything I could to have a better brain and a better life. And in fact, I'm so obsessed with it that I got divorced in 2000, and I told myself if I ever got married again, I'm going to scan, you know, the most important part of this woman's body I want to see is her brain. So when I met my wife almost 12 years ago, about 2 weeks into our relationship, she's really cute, she's really smart, I really liked her, and I said, you haven't seen the clinic yet. So she came, she agreed to get scanned, put her in the camera. She had a great brain. So I married her, and it's worked out really well. And the rule in my house is if you date one of my children, for more than 4 months, you have to get scanned. You haven't seen the clinic yet. Don't you want to see the clinic? And so my son-in-laws both have been scanned, and they got to stay and procreate. So the imaging tells us if a brain is healthy, if it's aging too fast, if you have something like Alzheimer's disease brewing in your brain, if it's been injured, if it works too hard or not hard enough. And ultimately, how do you know unless you look? So I've been trying to change the profession by, you know, psychiatry by, come on, you have to look. If you don't look, you don't know. Stop lying about it. Imaging actually completely changed the discussion around mental health for me. I learned no one wants to see a psychiatrist. No one wants to be labeled as defective or abnormal, but everybody wants a better brain. So what if mental health was really brain health? And our work was honored last year in Discover magazine. We were listed as one of the top 100 stories in science. Tesla was number 18. 20 was the discovery of a new dinosaur species. And our work, brain scans may lead to better diagnoses, was 19. We're really excited about that. So imaging is really important. But here's what's new in my life. If you want to keep your brain healthy for as long as possible, you need to prevent or treat all of the things that steal it. And I've developed a mnemonic. I have a new book coming out in November called Memory Rescue. And it's based on this really one simple idea that if you want to keep your memory, your brain and your memory healthy for as long as possible, or even reverse it if you have brain damage, you have to attack all of the risk factors that I put in this mnemonic, Bright Minds. B is for blood flow, which is critical to life. Blood carries nutrients to every cell in the body and removes toxins. Low blood flow is the #1 brain imaging predictor of Alzheimer's. New research suggests that brain cells don't age, rather it's your blood vessels that age. Anything that damages them damages your hippocampus and starves Scarlett and Sam of the nutrients they need. So how do you improve blood flow today? Limit caffeine and nicotine. Both constrict blood flow to the brain. A cup of coffee a day is not a problem, but more caffeine than that can be trouble. Be serious about treating high blood pressure. As blood pressure goes up, blood flow to your brain goes down. If you have any heart issues, be serious about treating them. Anything that damages your heart also damages your brain, and avoid being a couch potato. On the other hand, eating chili peppers and beets can help increase blood flow, as can taking the supplement ginkgo. The prettiest brains I've ever seen take ginkgo. Exercise, especially walking like you're late. Did you know that people who are 80, who can walk 3 miles an hour, have a 90% chance of living to 90? But those who can only walk 1 mile an hour have a 90% chance they won't live to 90. Also, I like a treatment called hyperbaric oxygen therapy because I've seen it increase blood flow to the brain. We published a study on the use of hyperbaric oxygen on veterans with brain injuries and showed it significantly increased blood flow and helped improve their memory and mood. Throughout the program, I'll talk about how important the right foods are to your memory. My wife Tana, an Amen Clinic chef, Honor Harvey, have created recipes to support each of the Bright Minds risk factors. One of my favorites is Beet Street tacos, which contain 10 different ingredients to support healthy blood flow. Our next Bright Minds letter is R, for retirement and aging. Increasing age is a major risk factor for memory loss. The older you get, the more serious you need to be about doing the right things. From our brain imaging work, it's clear that your brain becomes less and less active with age. I hate that. Here is a SPECT scan of a healthy 35-year-old compared to a 55-year-old man with mild memory problems. And here is a scan of a typical 82-year-old woman who suffers from memory problems and depression. Now compare these to my grandmother's scan at 92. She lived to 98 with a completely clear mind. One of the most exciting lessons I've learned from looking at all our scans is that your brain does not have to deteriorate. With the right plan, you can slow or even reverse the aging process. To decrease the risks under retirement and aging, avoid anything that accelerates it, such as loneliness. This was a big issue for Tana's father. The more he isolated himself, the worse he got. Avoid being in a job that does not require new learning, or being retired and not challenging your brain. When you stop learning, your brain starts dying. Avoid having short telomeres if you can help it. Telomeres are the end caps of chromosomes. Like plastic caps on shoelaces, they protect your genes. Shorter telomeres are associated with aging and memory problems, but it's not inevitable. This year I had my own telomeres tested. I'm 63, but my telomere age is 43. I'm not bragging. Much. But I do the things I'm telling you. To slow retirement and aging, research shows that lifelong learning and specific memory training programs help, which we'll talk about, as does being socially connected and volunteering. Plus, taking a daily multiple vitamin, meditating, and foods that contain vitamin C, such as strawberries and red bell peppers, are associated with increased telomere length. Plus, one of my grandmother's secrets was that she kept her mind active and spent thousands of hours knitting blankets for those she loved. Here's one of my favorite blankets. Knitting is a coordination exercise that activates a part of the brain called the cerebellum, involved with processing speed and memory. Now we get to one of the really bad letters in Bright Minds. I is for inflammation, which comes from the Latin word to set afire. When you have chronic inflammation, it's like you have a low-level fire destroying your organs, which increases your risk of depression and dementia. Tests for inflammation include C-reactive protein and the omega-3 index. Having rosacea and joint pain are also signs of inflammation. The best way to decrease inflammation is to eliminate anything that causes it, such as a diet filled with processed foods and sugar and gum disease. I was always too busy to floss until I saw the research showing gum disease was a major cause of inflammation and memory loss. Now I floss every day. I was just at the dentist and he told me my mouth looks better than ever. I was like a 7-year-old kid, so happy that I wanted to put a sticker on the refrigerator. I even called Tana to tell her, and she's like, seriously? That's what makes you happy? To reduce inflammation, floss every day. Cook with the yellow spice turmeric, and boost your omega-3 fatty acids by eating more fish or taking omega-3 supplements. In a new study we published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease, the hippocampus was healthiest in people who had the highest omega-3 levels. Our salmon curry chowder is an incredible anti-inflammatory dish I love, even though I usually don't much like salmon. G is for genetics. Memory loss runs in families. If you have a family member with Alzheimer's disease or other forms of dementia, that increases your risk. But having the genetic risk is not a death sentence. It should be a wake-up call. Meet Shailene Johnson. She's a best-selling author, motivational speaker, and mother of 2. Despite all of her success, when she came to see us, she struggled with memory, focus, distractibility, procrastination, and always being late to appointments. To give you an example of how bad it was, she had to shut herself in the basement closet just to get work done because any noise seemed to distract and irritate her. To make things worse, Shailene had a family history of Alzheimer's disease. Her scan looked terrible. It showed evidence of attention deficit disorder with low activity in her frontal lobes and low activity in areas vulnerable to Alzheimer's. The scan really got her attention. Over the next 2 years, she did everything we asked. Her follow-up scan showed dramatic improvement, decreasing her risk of future problems. More importantly, she told me that her work and relationships were much better too. Plus, she was finally able to get out of the basement. One of the major theories about what causes Alzheimer's is a buildup of toxic plaques in the brain. Research has shown that vitamin D, blueberries, sage, turmeric, and green tea can decrease these plaques. If you think you're at risk, early screening is essential. In the program materials, we provide online assessment tools for you and your loved ones. But the most important thing you can do if you have memory problems in your family is to be serious about prevention as soon as possible. Stop making excuses like it's too hard, too expensive, or you don't want to feel deprived. Trust me, losing your memory and independence is hard, expensive, and you and your family will feel deprived. The H in Bright Minds is for head trauma. Your brain is soft, about the consistency of soft butter, and your skull is really hard, with multiple sharp bony ridges. Head injuries, even mild ones that occurred decades earlier, are a major cause of depression, addictions, and memory problems. A study from the Mayo Clinic found that 1/3 of people who played football at any level had lasting brain damage. Oh no! I played football in high school, and it showed when I scanned myself. But my scan was much better 20 years later from doing the things I'm telling you. I love that. On SPECT, we often see that head trauma affects the front part of the brain, so people struggle with focus and decision making, and it affects the hippocampus because Scarlett and Sam sit right next to two sharp bony ridges. If you've had a head injury, the good news is that there are many things you can do to help it heal, even years later. Amen Clinics did the first and largest brain imaging study on active and retired NFL players. The level of damage was alarming, but what really excited us was on our memory rescue program, 80% of our players showed significant improvement in blood flow, memory, attention, mood, and sleep. Here is Anthony Davis, the Hall of Fame running back from USC. He is called the Notre Dame Killer because in 1972, he scored 6 touchdowns against the University of Notre Dame. When I saw him at 54, he had clear evidence of brain damage. He struggled with memory loss, periods of confusion, and irritability. But by doing everything we prescribed, including taking a multiple vitamin, high-dose omega-3s, and other brain-boosting nutrients, he felt better within a matter of weeks, and 10 years later, his follow-up scan continues to show improvement. Mercedes Maidana is another great example. She is a famous big wave surfer, motivational speaker, and life coach from Argentina. She suffered a serious concussion surfing a 30-foot wave off the coast of Oregon. Subsequently, she suffered from anxiety, depression, and memory problems. Her scan showed low activity in her right hippocampus, but by changing her diet, taking targeted supplements, and doing hyperbaric oxygen therapy, today she is happier, thriving, and leading health retreats for women. If you put the brain in a healing environment, it can get better. The T in Bright Minds is for toxins, one of the most common causes of memory loss and aging. When I first started performing SPECT scans, I noticed a toxic pattern on the brains of substance abusers, from alcoholics, cocaine addicts, and marijuana users. At Amen Clinics, we just published a study on nearly 1,000 pot smokers. Compared to non-users, as a group, pot smokers showed lower blood flow in every area of the brain, especially the hippocampus. This is visual evidence that getting Scarlett and Sam stoned or drunk can cause lasting brain damage. The scans taught me another important lesson. Besides drugs and alcohol, there are many other things that are toxic to your brain, such as smoking, even secondhand smoke, mold exposure from water damage, carbon monoxide, cancer chemotherapy and radiation. As they kill cancer cells, they also kill healthy cells, and heavy metals, including mercury, aluminum, and lead. Did you know that when the government took lead out of gasoline, they left it in small airplane fuel? We did a study on 100 pilots and found 70% had toxic-looking brains. Lead is also found in 60% of lipstick sold in the United States. Be careful who you kiss, or it could be the kiss of death. If you have any of these risk factors, such as chemotherapy or mold exposure, it just means, like having a genetic risk or head trauma, you need to be even more serious about taking care of your brain. Meet Dave Asprey, the founder of Bulletproof Coffee, who said that when he got his SPECT scan, it changed everything in his life. He was working and getting an MBA from Wharton, but at the time, he was struggling with brain fog and memory. He said, I'd sit down to do a test, and by the third question, felt totally confused. His scan looked terrible, which to Dave was good news. He could see evidence of the problem and do something about it. He went from thinking that he was just lazy or a bad person to someone who had a medical issue. It turned out that Dave had years of toxic mold exposure from water damage in his house. After he underwent treatment, his brain improved, his memory was better, and the brain fog lifted. He said he only had one complaint. He lost muscle tone in his middle finger. As his brain improved, so did his temper, and he went on to become incredibly successful. To decrease your toxic risk, limit your exposure whenever you can. Buy organic to decrease pesticides, and read labels. If a product lists ingredients such as phthalates, parabens, or aluminum, don't buy it. What goes on your body goes in your body and affects your brain. Plus, support the 4 organs of detoxification, including your kidneys, so drink more water. Gut, make sure to eat plenty of fiber. Skin, sweat with exercise and take saunas. A recent study showed that people who took the most saunas had the lowest risk of memory problems. And support your liver by eating brassicas, which are detoxifying vegetables such as broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, and Brussels sprouts. Tana's brassicas taste amazing. One thing you can do today is download one of the many free apps to scan your personal products and see how toxic they are. They'll tell you on a scale of 1 to 10 how quickly they're killing you. When I first used one, I threw out half the products in my bathroom. The M in Bright Minds is for mental health issues. Chronic stress, emotional trauma, grief, depression, bipolar disorder, and ADD have been associated with lasting memory problems. If you struggle with any of these issues, it's critical to get them treated. I want to talk for a minute about ADD. It affects nearly 10% of the population. And contrary to popular belief, it's not just a childhood disorder. It also affects adults, even older ones. I recently saw Joan, a grandmother who was very concerned about her memory. She came to see me because I was treating her son, and she had a family history of Alzheimer's. Joan's scan showed low blood flow in the front part of her brain, consistent with ADD, and low blood flow in her hippocampus, making her more vulnerable to Alzheimer's. After just a month of treatment, her brain was remarkably better. And she said, "Wow, it's a night and day difference." I almost cried. My husband notices it too. I'm more patient. I can sit through our granddaughter's recitals without having to get up 3 times. I'm more creative, more disciplined, and more productive. Treating mental health issues does not necessarily mean medicine. In a recent article in the American Journal of Psychiatry, researchers wrote that nutraceuticals were a low-cost option that should be considered. Studies have shown that omega-3 fatty acids, saffron, and SAMe can help your mood, while exercise, meditation, hypnosis, and a vegetable-rich diet can help your overall mental health. The second I in Bright Minds does double duty and stands for immunity and infections. Did you read in the news that country music legend Chris Christopherson was diagnosed with Alzheimer's? He saw one of the doctors who works with us, Mark Philaday, who discovered Chris really had Lyme disease. And on antibiotics and hyperbaric oxygen, his memory improved and he was back on the road touring again. According to the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease, if you struggle with your memory, infectious diseases need to be explored by your physician. Some of the best ways to strengthen your immunity include knowing and optimizing your vitamin D level, taking probiotics because gut health is critical to your immunity. Also, eat foods such as garlic, onions, and mushrooms. The N in Bright Minds stands for neurohormone deficiencies. Hormones are like Miracle-Gro for your brain and essential for a strong memory. Without healthy hormones, you feel tired and foggy, and your hippocampus will become smaller and weaker. Besides memory, testosterone helps you feel happy, motivated, sexual, and strong. Thyroid gives you energy and mental clarity. My friend, Dr. Richard Shamas, says low thyroid doesn't kill you. It just makes you wish you were dead. DHEA helps to fight aging, and in women, Estrogen and progesterone help boost blood flow and keep your brain young. To keep your hormones healthy, test them every year after the age of 40. Avoid hormone disruptors such as pesticides, phthalates, and parabens in personal products, and work with your doctor. Mercedes had low thyroid, which is common in people who've had head injuries. This is new information and also something we found in many of our football players. Optimizing her thyroid improved her energy and focus. The D in Bright Minds is for diabetes, a double-barreled threat to your memory. It involves being diabetic, overweight, or both. I've published 2 studies that show as your weight goes up, the physical size and function of your brain goes down. With 2/3 of American overweight and nearly 40% obese, it is the biggest brain drain in the history of the United States. The excessive fat on your body is not innocuous. It disrupts your hormones, stores toxins, and produces chemicals that increase inflammation. When obesity is combined with diabetes, the risk is worse. High blood sugar levels damage your blood vessels, which is why I can be a bummer if you go out to dinner with me. A couple of years ago, I was speaking at a conference in Nashville. That evening, I had dinner with one of my best friends. Mark was overweight and diabetic. But when I saw him inject himself with insulin at the table and then order cornbread, chicken fried steak, and mashed potatoes and gravy, I was horrified. Without making a fuss, I asked Mark how tall he was, 6 feet. Then I asked him how much he weighed. He said 244 pounds. On my phone, I calculated his BMI, or body mass index, and then looked at him and said, "Mark, you're obese." Astounded, Mark said, "Daniel, you're so cold." I replied, "Not nearly as cold as you're going to be when you're 6 feet under." The words obese and 6 feet under really got Mark's attention. The next month, he lost 10 pounds. 2 years later, when we met at the same conference, he was down 53 pounds and had increased energy, focus, and memory. And he embarrassed me when he told me how good his sex life was. What's more, he cut his insulin dose in half. And when I asked Mark if getting healthy was hard, he laughed and said, "Being sick was hard. This is easy. I'll never go back. Thank you for caring enough about me to have that hard conversation." To get diabetes under control, you have to get your food right. Here are 5 simple brain-healthy rules. 1, eat high-quality calories and not too many of them. I think of calories like money. Overspend and your health will become bankrupt. 2, eat clean protein at every meal to balance your blood sugar and decrease cravings. 3, focus your diet on healthy fats from fish, nuts, seeds, and avocados. Fat is essential for brain health. 4, eat smart carbohydrates that do not raise your blood sugar, such as those found in colorful fruits and vegetables, and limit sugar and carbs that quickly turn to sugar, such as bread, pasta, potatoes, and rice. I call these dumb carbs because they're pro-inflammatory and studies show they can decrease IQ. 5, liberally use brain-healthy spices, especially pepper, cinnamon, nutmeg, garlic, cloves, and turmeric. They attack virtually all of the Bright Minds risk factors. If you follow these simple food rules, you can eat incredibly healthy food that tastes amazing. In the program materials, Tana and Chef Honor provide more than 200 delicious brain-healthy recipes that support all of the Bright Minds strategies. Here are just a few of my favorites. Pumpkin spice wake-up cappuccino, I make my wife one every morning. Unforgettable lamb butternut squash stew. It's so good. Sweet potato nacho chips. Asian chicken salad filled with fiber and taste. And low-carb chocolate chip waffles. Unbelievable. And crunchy chocolate mint thins. There shouldn't be any suffering in getting and keeping a healthy brain. The S in Bright Minds is for sleep. It is estimated that 60 million Americans have sleep-related issues. Chronic insomnia, sleeping pills, and sleep apnea significantly increase the risk of memory problems. Here is a scan of someone with sleep apnea. We often see low activity in areas that die early in Alzheimer's. If you snore and stop breathing at night, or someone tells you that you do, get assessed. When you sleep, your brain cleans or washes itself. If sleep is disrupted, trash builds up in your brain, which damages your memory. Getting less than 7 hours of sleep at night is associated with weight issues, hypertension, accidents, and trouble in your marriage, because you are more likely to say something you wish you hadn't. You can improve your memory tomorrow by improving your sleep tonight. Do this by avoiding caffeine, a warm room, light and noise, especially from your gadgets, and alcohol. Yes, it will put you to sleep, but when it wears off, your brain will rebound and wake you up a few hours later. To sleep better, make your room cooler, darker, and quieter. Turn off your gadgets so they don't disturb you. Listening to music with a specific rhythm can help, as can hypnosis. We have a powerful program to help you retrain your brain to sleep. Magnesium and melatonin are often very effective, as is 5-HTP if you're a worrier. If you have bad thoughts that keep you awake, journaling helps to get them out of your head. So let me show you how this works. As Mel said, I did the world's first and largest study on active and retired NFL players at a time when the NFL was lying. And I knew they were lying. And so we got 200 NFL players and showed high levels of damage in more than 90% of them. A 9-year-old should have figured that out. That's not hard. Brain is soft, skull is hard, skull has sharp bony ridges. But my heart was never to go, okay, you guys have a problem. My heart was to fix it. And so we put our players on this program. So here's the level of damage that we saw. We published this study, but on our program, 80% of them showed improvement, often radical improvement. We were so happy about that. One of my players, Duval Love, his brain just looked awful. But this is his brain 12 months later. And, oh, by the way, he lost 110 pounds because he didn't want to be a dinosaur. You know, big body, little brain, you're going to become extinct. But my favorite story in all of this, in 1980, when I told my dad I was going to be a psychiatrist, he asked me why I didn't want to be a real doctor. So that's the kind of relationship we had. He's a very blunt person and not all that polite. I'm like, who says that to their child? And then when I started looking at the brain and realized I had to get physically healthy, and I start nudging him to get healthy, he goes, oh great, you're a nut doctor, and now you're a health nut. He said, what's with all the nuts? But 3 years ago, he had mold in his house. He's 85. And then he developed a chronic cough, and then a heart arrhythmia, and then heart failure. And now he's depressed because this person who's been going to work for 70 years, who was chairman of the board of a $4 billion company, is a very powerful person. Now he can't work. And one day he looked at me and he said, Danny, I'm sick of being sick. What do you want me to do? Now, this is a guy who used to say, I don't get heart attacks, I give them. And here he is in the chair. And I said, Pop, I want you to do everything, because without you, I'm going to be really sad. And he's so stubborn. He did everything. He assessed his brain. He got his important numbers checked. He's texting me food labels. Can I eat this? Can I not eat this? And other people are trying to get him to cheat. That's love. And he's like, no, I'm going to do what Danny says. He eats perfectly. My idea of a brain-healthy meal. Takes targeted supplements. We start working out. First it's 3 pounds, then it's 6, then it's 12, then it's 24. Over 6 months he loses 40 pounds. He's back playing golf. And this guy can do a 6-minute plank. I don't know about you, I cannot do a 6-minute plank. And my promise to him is that he will be better at 90 than he was at 60. But what it is you just have to make a series of really smart decisions and ask yourself every day, is what I'm doing today good for my brain or bad for it? Thank you so much.